Right, let's see if I can figure this out. And let's begin. Why do we need language? Well, language is this weird thing where you just naturally, while you're a baby, make sounds. You make sounds all the time. Like at the moment you get born, you start crying. Crying is showing of emotion. It's a warning signal. It's panic. And that signal is communication. So right from the beginning, we communicate. Like it's part of our most natural, innate instinct. And it just develops further and from there. Like scientists have found out that babies use all morphemes. That means all sounds from all languages. They use all of them from the beginning. And then, as time moves on and they only hear the sounds from their parents, they cut away everything else. They just stick to the sounds that their parents use, and then that becomes the language they speak slowly and surely. But at the beginning, it's just one big mess of everything combined, and then it slowly gets more and more precise until suddenly you have words, sentences, and you have a language, you have a thought, you have ideas. But in the beginning, it's just crying. And any parent, you can also imagine this, and you've probably seen it online, not online, but on TV, maybe with your own parents, that a baby can be crying. And it can mean, I'm hungry, I'm tired, my diaper's dirty, I want attention, I didn't get what I want. It can mean so many things, and there's only this one thing for it, which is the crying. But the crying can also happen on many different levels. Like a baby that is physically hurting cries in another way than if it's hungry. So it also there, or already there, has several differences in how it communicates its needs. And this idea of the baby having all the sounds from the beginning fits into what a Greek philosopher called Plato came up with. It's an idea that basically, when we are born, we know everything. We know absolutely everything. And then we unlearn all the things that doesn't fit, or we forget. And so when you, for example, learn a language, his idea was that you just had to relearn it because it was hidden away somewhere within you. And this kind of shows that it might be true in some way, at least when it comes to language. We've also found out that children have a lot more fucked up way of seeing the world. Like the way a baby sees the world is more or less the way you see it while you're on shrooms or LSD. Like it's a lot more psychedelic because their brains aren't completely functioning yet, and they don't have well-developed networks. So it's not this area does this, and this area does this, and this area does this. It's a lot more interconnected in just one big soup of weird. And the same with their vision, because their vision is not that far away. Like at the beginning when they're born, they can only see like from their own eyes to the face of their mother when they're being breastfed. And then the range of their sight slowly increases and things become more detailed, and they can slowly begin to understand more and more of the world and discern it from each other. So you see, oh, this is one object and this is another object, and these things like hang together. And now this idea of having all knowledge in the world, several people that have taken psychedelics or people that have been meditating for 30 years, they say something similar, especially when you achieve what is called an ego death, so that you experience yourself dying, or at least everything you think you are dies. Your entire identity, everything you call I, me, is gone. But there's something behind it that apparently feels familiar. It's the same with people that have died. Like if they had a heart attack and they died, and then they get back, they get resurrected, they talk about getting into this weird place. Maybe they see the light, but it feels like home. It feels like some place they've been far away from for such a long time. But it's like, this is where they come from. This is like the core of what they are and where they arise from. But they kind of forget it after some time. It's specifically the same with people that have hallucinations and psychedelic experiences, that they come back and they can sit and be like, dude, like there were these faces, and like I was looking at the bench and it was bars in a cell and we were locked up, and these faces, they were crying, man, they were crying. And you can say like, dude, what the fuck, man? Like, it makes absolutely no sense. And that's true, because we often don't know how to describe something like a psychedelic experience, or if you have some sort of hallucination. Like, we don't even understand our dreams, right? You're gonna have this weird ass dream where you go and meet the dad of your friend, and he like smokes and then coughs up something black, and then he has you look at this vegetable patch, and then you go downstairs. It's your friend, but suddenly you're looking for a girlfriend, and it's her sister, but it's the sister of another friend you have, and then the sister has a friend that is then your uncle, and they're sitting together talking, and the house is like nothing you've ever seen before. Excuse me, what now? What's going on? Well, you can look at the way, and we have a language we use. I'm speaking words right now. But there's so many different ways of communicating, because language is the hardest way for us, right? The easiest, but also the hard knock way for us to communicate. So I mean, in hard is like hard facts, hard science. Like you say 2 + 2 is 4. That is a hard fact. And when I say words and say a sentence, we can more or less most of the time agree on what it means. Of course, you can be ambiguous and make things not make sense, but in general, a language is a structure for us to communicate and make meaning to other people. But sometimes, I'm going to stick to the psychedelic thing. I'm looking at my notes here. Because some languages might have a lot easier time describing things like a psychedelic experience than we do, because we have a Western language system. So maybe our minds cannot cope with how something like a psychedelic experience works like, because we don't have the language for it, we don't have the words, so we don't know how to describe it. And usually what happens is people have an experience like this, and then a week after, and a month after, and years after, they cannot describe the thing anymore. Like they lose grasp of it. They can't really remember what happened. And again, it's the same thing as your dream. If you don't think about it, or if you don't describe it or write it down, you will forget within like half an hour and 1 hour. And at the end of the night, or at the end of the day, you will remember so little of your dream, unless it's something that really sprung out to you. Because sometimes you have dreams and it's just like, oh yeah, like something happened. And sometimes you wake up and you have such a clear idea of what happened, and it was one big cohesive story that went from point A to point B. Like your subconscious was really trying to tell you something that it found important. And that's what we do when analyzing dreams, right? We try and figure out what our subconscious is telling us, because our subconscious uses a fundamentally different language than we do. They use stories and experiences, but it's like figurative. So you can look at a painting, then you can look away, and then you can look back at the painting, and suddenly it's something else entirely, because that painting was not an important part of your dream. It was not what your subconscious was trying to communicate to you. Now, they most of the time don't make that much sense, but that's most likely because our subconscious has a difficult time talking with us. It's like I speak Danish and I try to talk with someone who's speaking Arabic. Like, it's very difficult for us to have a high-level conversation. We can do really basic stuff, right? Because what do you do if you have to communicate with someone you don't share a language with? They say, oh yes, water, gluk gluk, shh, this, water, drink, yes, good. Or you can say, oh, I'm itching, ooh, itchy, and you can say, yeah, happy, woo. So you do all these kind of weird sounds because you cannot use your words. So what do? You use your body language, you use your facial expressions, because that is one of the most important parts we have. There's that idea of like, what is it, 80% of all communication is through body language? Well, most likely, right? What did I just do? I did like weird, more like animal stuff. Well, yes, of course I did, because we are animals. We just found a more sophisticated system that doesn't necessarily make us able to express things with the weight we need to. Because we have expressions. I can say that I am sad, right? But if I look into you and just say I'm sad, but I look happy, you don't really feel it. I can also be crying hard, tears are streaming down my face. And I say, no, it's fine, I'm okay. And you don't believe that for a second because you see me crying, right? It's so much deeper, so much more fundamental than that. But it's also a question of what holds weight. Because if you're really angry and you look at someone calmly and say, I am really pissed off with you right now. You make me furious because you just will not listen to me. Like, it does not have the same effect as you're such an idiot, I fucking hate you, god damn it, I want to fucking kill you, kick you in the face. That has a lot more impact because they show emotion and because it has force and impact. Because I start behaving more like an animal. You know, there's like that meme, like, it doesn't matter about what I say, but the way I say it, I love you, dog! That's a good one. It's a really good expression of it. I think you should look at that video at some point. It's pretty fun. So, I have a quick thought experiment. Casper, would you please close your eyes? Now think of a chair. What does this chair look like?
Very simple.
Very simple?
It has 4 legs.
Describe how it looks.
The part you sit on is purplish.
It's made of metal or made of wood?
The part that holds it together is wood, but when you sit the cozy part, so to speak, is made of fabric.
Okay, so it has a cushion.
Maybe. I'm just imagining this chair I'm sitting on. So.
Yeah, I can already hear. So we're in the lecture hall. So, of course, Casper, because he's very unimaginative, he thinks of one of these chairs. And that's not very surprising, because it's the last chair he's seen. Now, Astrid, close your eyes, think of a chair. And you guys watching, if there's anyone, you can do the same thing. Close your eyes and think of a chair and think of what it looks like. You can even write in the comments if you want. Astrid, how does your chair look?
Blue plastic swivel chair, like the ones in art.
Fair enough. My mind image of a chair is like one of those which has like really thin metal legs, and then it just has one wooden, like white wood, that is like a curve, and then the back of it is like this round curve that like goes in and then goes out. Like they're pretty different, those 3 chairs. You could also have thought of an armchair or a completely metal chair, something like that. The idea is I use the word chair, right? But when we close our eyes and think of one, we all think of very different things. So chair, even though we know what we mean when we say chair, and we can all point to chairs and say, yes, that's a chair, our initial idea of it is very different. And that just shows how different we think also about the words we use. Because the words we use don't necessarily mean the same thing to each of us. Because if I say privacy, some people will value privacy very highly and think that is so important. I will sacrifice a lot of my freedom. I will sacrifice the emotions and freedom of other people to feel like I have privacy. Some people really don't like having their privacy infringed on and violated. And there are other people like me. I will share just about anything about myself. I don't care one bit. My privacy has no value to me. And so if I'm discussing privacy with someone, we can sit, we can have arguments, and we can disagree. And we can even agree on the facts about how bad it is and the consequences. But those consequences are not as bad to me as they are to him, because he cares a lot more about it than I do. And so the word doesn't have the same meaning at all. We value it fundamentally differently. And we do that like all people. We value a bunch of things differently, but we also don't agree on what the words we talk about mean exactly. That's why if you watch academic talks or discussions, you can often get stuck in trying to figure out what one word means. Like, what does belief mean? What does religion, spirituality, what does God mean? What does it mean to be Danish? What does it mean to be human? All those kinds of things. Right at the moment, we're talking about what does sexism mean? What does feminism mean? What does the part of Danish values mean? Like, what is a Danish value? What is a European value? We all think we know what we mean when somebody says European, but turns out not necessarily. Not as much as we would like to think, at least. Now, the interesting thing, right, is that when you grow up, you don't speak the language of your parents. They teach you the language in the beginning, rudimentarily. But once you start going to kindergarten and hanging out with friends, you start talking the way they do. You use the words they do, you use the intonation they do. And so right from the beginning, language becomes something that each generation owns. And it's like children, they just invented their own thing, which is hugely weird. But if you think about how you talk, and how your parents talk, and how your grandparents talk, you can even think about how, if you have younger brothers or sisters, like, how do they talk? Because it can be vastly different. And there's no clear reason why. It just sort of happens. What we do in our generation is we tend to use a lot of filler. You know, a good example is Thomas, you know. Not Janne, but yeah, bro. Altså, det er fordi, altså, bro, hør, you feel me? He has so many words that don't really mean anything. They're just there, and they take up a lot of filling. But it's hugely entertaining. And on top of that, you can feel his emotions, right? The words themselves don't have meaning, but the way he expresses them, the intensity, the speed, the volume, it all tries to describe how he feels right now, what he's trying to achieve. And at some point, he will have a point. You might have to wait a little bit, but he has a point. And usually it's great, and people enjoy listening to him. Because people know where he is at, because he's expressing his emotions just through the way he tones his words. And that's pretty amazing. But we do it kind of differently in general. Not differently, but like, he's a very extreme example. We can use, I think maybe that like we're kind of a little bit like this. There's so many words we can use that we basically use to doubt ourselves. You can't just say, I think this, or I don't believe that. That doesn't happen to us anymore. We are a lot more withholding. We're a lot more insecure, maybe, about the way we speak and the way we come forth with ourselves. I find it interesting, and sometimes I am very frustrated with it because I don't like speaking that way, because I want to speak with certainty. But I am a victim and a creator of the language, as well as you people are. Because language is like this weird dynamic thing, right? We somehow invent it, and we use language all the time and invent new weird words and start using weird words. And because we are so interacting with English, usually we will combine Danish and English all the time. And you can sit and miss the word in Danish, but you have